Sharing the split screen with me is a document with the heading ADA website compliance. And this is still a topic that many people do not fully understand. And in part, it's because this is an inexact term. So ADA website compliance originates from ADA compliance. And ADA is the acronym for the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is a civil law that requires accessibility generally. And it was signed into law in 1990, which means it didn't contemplate modern digital technologies such as websites and mobile apps. Now, the Department of Justice is the regulatory and enforcement agency behind Title II and Title III of the ADA. And most people watching this video will be concerned with Title III because Title III applies to private entities with public accommodations. So the unofficial stance of the DOJ is that the ADA does apply to websites. And they have stated this at multiple times in multiple ways. However, the DOJ has not issued official regulation which sets out exactly how to make a website ADA compliant. And so because of this uncertainty, but yet this stance of the DOJ that the ADA does apply to websites, litigation has ensued. And litigation has increased for several years, and now it has plateaued where there are multiple thousands of complaints filed each year, and we don't even know the extent of how many demand letters are sent out. So litigation includes demand letters, it includes complaints, and litigation is expensive to defend, and because of that, most of these complaints filed end in a settlement. So how do you make your website ADA compliant? Well, what I have done is I've taken the Department of Justice's private enforcement actions. And so these private enforcement actions are basically where the DOJ takes action against a private entity because they think that entity is not ADA compliant. And there are several private enforcement actions that have concerned the websites and mobile apps of private entities. And so if you look at those private enforcement actions, the DOJ specifies exactly what the entity needs to do to become, in their view, ADA compliant. So these private enforcement actions are where I pull best practices for ADA compliance from. And the best practices for becoming ADA compliant are making your website or asset fully WCAG conformant and publishing a conspicuous accessibility statement. And but in terms of preventing lawsuits, the best course of action is to find and fix the issues that plaintiffs' lawyers are looking for. So you very much need to approach ADA compliance strategically, because when you look at the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which are the technical standards that are best practices for ADA compliance, there are numerous different considerations that we can make and incorporate to make our websites accessible. However, all of those considerations are not what plaintiffs' law firms are looking for. Rather, plaintiffs' law firms are typically looking for very specific accessibility issues that they claim in litigation. And I have an entire mini-series where I go over the claims that are made by the most active plaintiffs' law firms in this space, and I examine and I name what exactly plaintiffs' law firms are looking for. And these issues are the accessibility issues that website owners need to prioritize when attempting to make their websites, quote unquote, ADA compliant. Because what the term ADA website compliance really comes down to for most people is making it so that they have their websites accessible enough so that they do not get sued. Now, I definitely recommend full WCAG conformance, but the way that you get to fully conform it with the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines very much affects your risk of litigation. So your risk of receiving a demand letter or having a complaint filed against you in court. Because if we take care of some accessibility issues but leave others until later, then we are leaving ourselves open to a lawsuit. So we want to avoid that wherever possible, and we want to strategically approach ADA website compliance in a way where we reduce our risk of litigation as we improve the accessibility of our web assets, such as our website. The problem is the sellers and the vendors in this space do not fully understand what they are selling and or offering and what their customers or clients need. And their customers need immediate relief from litigation so that they can focus in on accessibility. But what sellers offer and what the customers need are not aligned. And this has given rise to me creating the ADA compliance course, because the ADA compliance course is the lessons are comprised of the exact issues that are most commonly claimed in litigation by the most active plaintiffs' law firms. And I have ordered the lessons in the order that I would resolve each accessibility issue so as to reduce risk of litigation. And this is what you need to start off with, because you're still genuinely improving the accessibility of your website. And in many cases, you are improving the accessibility of your website for potential accessibility issues that could cause a barrier to access for some people. So it genuinely improves the accessibility of your website as you work through it, but you strategically work through accessibility issues so as to reduce your risk of litigation. And this gives you a way to immediately embrace accessibility and start remediation. So start finding accessibility issues and then remediating them. The course itself will not make your website fully WCAG conformant, but you will virtually eliminate your risk of litigation if you account for all of the accessibility issues in the lessons of the course. This is what the heart of ADA website compliance is for most people, is it's making your website accessible so that you do not get sued. And that's always best practice. There's no need to pay out plaintiffs' law firms to make your websites accessible. So resolve resolve the accessibility issues that are claimed the most in litigation, and then continue on and make your website fully WCAG conformant. And of course, publish an accessibility statement that is helpful and helps anybody through using your website. But you definitely want to resolve the issues that are claimed most often in litigation.